walk with me.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City of Cedar Falls City Council meeting for Monday, November 4th. Madam Clerk, or excuse me, call this meeting order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Hallbaker.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Chrisman. Here. Dunn. Here. All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if willing and able, could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. And I'll look for a motion to approve regular meeting of October 21st meeting minutes for 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. And any discussion from council? Any from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ooh.
All opposed? Oh,
Minutes?
for the minutes? All right, all those opposed to the minutes? All right, motion carries. Madam Clerk, any agenda revisions?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we will now move to the public forum, where speakers will have an opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business, things that are not on the regular city agenda. Is there anyone from the public? Just name and address, please.
My name is Chad Welsh at 6701 Strayer Road in Cedar Falls. Hello, Council. I just wanted to come and speak and show my continued displeasure with not only the city staff, but my frustration with City Council. I wasn't present last meeting, but I watched the recording and I want to address the soccer field retaining wall issue on Viking Road. As a developer who is trying to take undesirable properties and make them into something desirable, I have numerous times dealt with the very lengthy process of communicating with city staff and following the procedures. It's very frustrating to see a project like the retaining wall, where plans were not only not followed, but completely ignored and disregarded, get such easy post-approval from planning and zoning and city council. This issue should be reprimanded, not granted immunity. So to educate people who may not be aware and refresh the city council memory, a developer on Viking Road had a master plan for his project that had a soccer field on it that required no retaining walls. Upon inspection, the city had found that the developer installed a 9-foot retaining wall to obtain the size of field that they wanted prior to approval from the city. My biggest issue is a 9-foot retaining wall required should be something that's pretty obvious to the developer and city staff. This is about 8 foot tall, so it's taller than this. So, I mean, if it's 100 yards, you can see that's pretty obvious to need something in that space. So, do I think that this retaining wall should be tore down and put back? No. Like you guys talked previously, that's a waste of people's time and money. But I don't think that it's fair that after the fact that he just gets approval and they get to move on. So just to give you some insight and hopefully understand where I'm coming from with my point of view, I own the property at 904 Rainbow Drive, which was the Waffle Stop, but is now currently operated as Radiance Chiropractic by my wife. I stopped in to talk to city staff on April 22nd, 2024 to get the conversation started and the ball rolling on a roughly 700 square foot addition we were looking at doing. My architect tried for a couple months to meet with the city staff and have an informal conversation about the product and become more aware of the needs and requirements so we didn't waste too much time and resources on a project that would have roadblocks making it not feasible to do. After months of conversation, my understanding is that we're pretty much forced to submit a formal site plan with all required architectural drawings needed to basically fully complete the job. After submitting the required paperwork, we finally got an in-person meeting with city staff on July 18th, almost 3 months after the conversation got started. At that meeting, it was brought to our attention that with our addition, we had to bring the parking lot up to current code. We had to change the layout of the parking lot, making the parking along Rainbow Drive parallel to Rainbow Drive instead of perpendicular. We had to add 5 foot of green space, landscape space. With doing the said changes that made our aisle of our parking lot now up to current code. City staff said, just put the numbers on paper and fudge them in the field. I asked city staff if I could apply for a variance on the landscape space, which they responded, no, but we will work with you on the aisle space, not the landscape space. So they're saying I cannot apply for variance on one item, but they'll automatically grant me another one, which if we're trying to update our parking lot to bring it to current codes for safety, why are we so quickly allowing it not to be up to current code as we are required to have the landscape space? And if we are not requiring it to be up to code, why are we having to make any changes to the parking lot in the first place? Can't we just apply for a variance and leave it as is? Which brings me to my other issue, landscape space for parking lots. How I read the code is the landscape space is required on all new or altered parking lots with 3 or more stalls. Why does most new commercial construction not have it? Drive through Industrial Park, drive down Viking Road, you'll rarely see landscaping around the parking lot with 3 foot tall screening. Raising Cane's, for example. Everyone that pulls into Raising Cane's, all their headlights shine at that intersection of 58 and Viking Road, one of the busiest intersections in the city, and they have no screening at all. How do they have a workaround on the landscape screening on a brand new build? Why are we holding mom and pop developers who are trying to repurpose and give existing structures another life to a higher standard than brand new builds? Why are we requiring citizens who wish to improve and expand their businesses waste $17,000 in architectural drawings and fees before we can have a conversation on the feasibility of the project with city staff? When is city staff and city as a whole going to start working for its people instead of against? How can one person have such a great struggle and cost with no solution while others are allowed to break the rules with ease and forgiveness with no additional cost or consequences? Are we teaching people to follow the rules of the city staff or write our own rules? Are we trying to practice, are those types of practices teaching developers how to handle these situations forward? I ask the city council members to please chat with myself and other developers in the city and see how absolutely miserable city staff makes it invest in this town. The issues I've had with this project are just the tip of the iceberg of many of that I've had with city staff. I've had many conversations with Mayor Danny and some council members, and I appreciate their time and their efforts. I've reached out via call, email, and stopping to see Ron Gaines about the issues, and I've yet to receive any sort of response. I've been told by dozens and dozens of developers to not invest in the city, and every time I try to invest here, their stories become more and more valid. I truly hope we can make change in this city where our roots are planted and we're raising our kids. There has to be a better way for the city to operate and to deal with its citizens and its developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. And I've got a few items in there that I'll make sure we follow up with you on. All right, is there anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and address, please.
Dennis Pruckler, 2221 Center Street, Cedar Falls. And I spoke here a few weeks ago, a month ago or so, about how I believe if we build the Whitewater Park that had been planned in the past, that would be a mistake, that there's a much better alternative. I've never seen a definitive answer as to whether that project is dead or not. I've seen vaguely worded responses, so I don't know. Maybe I'm needlessly speaking if it is a dead in the water, but I'm talking here because out of fear it may not be. I was just reading the newer FEMA National Flood Insurance Program guidelines for such projects, and they made their new handbook they published last, I think, December, much more clear and blunt than the previous one had. And, I'll read a couple quotes I don't like to read, but it is the community's responsibility to make the determination that a development in the floodway will not cause any increase in flood stage. You cannot depend solely on registered professional engineers' no-rise certification. And they go on and point out that the engineers, the certification issued by them does not constitute a warranty or guarantee of any kind whatsoever, express or implied. And they point out that the engineers are not working for the city. They're working for the company that's applying for the projects and stuff, and not necessarily looking for our best interest. Keeping that in mind, I've done quite a bit of study on what would happen if they take out the floodgates, which prevent flooding on the river. I'd hate to get into numbers, but it doesn't flood Island Park until the volume of water is 18,000 cubic feet a second. Without the floodgates, when they're jammed, Island Park floods at 5,000 or 5,500. The water only has to rise about 5 feet for it to flood, rather than 9 feet. I went and looked through the U.S. Geological Survey data for the last 11 years. That's the data that they have daily water levels available, and just highlighted all the days that Island Park would be underwater in the last, each one of these little boxes a year. So that's 11 years of dates on there, but it would have been a total of 937 days actively flooding. That's not counting the days where it's muddy, mucky, and so on. I went and calculated it for what would happen if the Snag Creek waterway are opened and was even lowered 2 feet below the park level. The volume of water that could theoretically carry, this is the number of days the park would have been flooded over the last 11 years. That's a whole lot of cleanup. And my concern is, when I've talked to the engineers on this project, is they answer they've only studied they tell me the 500-year floodplain analysis says there will be no flooding, 0.1 thousandth increase in flooding over the 500-year. I'm not going to live 500 years. I don't know anybody here that will. This happens every summer, much of the summer. Almost a third of the summer season, the park would be underwater. That's when we're trying to bring in tourists, and they won't even be able to get to the facility if the park's underwater. I'd like to see, instead of a 500-year analysis where putting the things in the river get lost in a floodplain a mile wide, I'd rather see an analysis of when will the water rise if they take the floodgates out? When will it rise enough to start causing a mess? Because I don't expect to live 500 years, but I do know most of us will see that kind of a thing month after month after month. And that's, to me, a bigger concern. I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Bruckler.
Thanks, Dan.
And I'll follow up on just some of the questions about the dam and the plans for it. And
Oh, okay, thank you. 'Cause, I mean, I hate to be wasting your time if it's dead in the water.
yeah, so appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the staff updates, which I do not believe we have any, unless there's been any updates since this morning. All right, none there. We'll move to the special order of business. Item number 2, public hearing to consider vacating a utility easement at 1907 Valley High Drive. We have a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of hearing.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
A motion and a second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any written communications for this item?
I have no written communications on file.
Thank you, and we have staff comments from Karen. Thank you, Karen.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is a request from James and Nicolette Wilson to vacate a 5-foot utility easement that runs through the center of their property. The Wilsons purchased 2 lots adjacent to each other, and so the easement was originally along the edge of the subdivision, the original subdivision. There are no utilities in that easement. CFU has confirmed that. The city doesn't see any use for that easement any longer. And so staff has no concerns, CFU has no concerns with vacating that easement for the Wilsons. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has agreed and voted unanimously to approve the vacation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions right now while we got Karen up there? All right, seeing none, do we have any public comments on this item tonight, please? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for a motion to resolution approving and authorizing vacation of a utility easement at 1907 Valley High Drive.
So moved.
Second.
The motion and seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, that requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 3, public hearing to consider entering into an agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to Odell Collision Center, LLC. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
Second.
Notice of hearing. Motion seconded. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And then for this one, we have staff comments from Shane Graham. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Mayor. On council's agenda tonight is a proposed agreement for private development with Odell Collision Services, or Collision Center LLC. I've been working with the owners, Ben and Rachel Odell, for the past several months now as they're looking for a new location in Cedar Falls. They're currently leasing a building on Westminster Drive in one of the older parts of the industrial park. They've outgrown that twice now, and so now they're looking to build a larger facility. This will probably double the size of the space that they're currently in. So with that, this is on Lot 18, which is in the West Viking Road Industrial Park. It's just to the south of Ashley Furniture's warehouse and just to the east of Zeidberg, North America. This would be at the end of Capitol Way, north of Technology Place. The new facility will have a minimum building valuation of $1.8 million, and combined with the land value, it'll be just over $1.9 million in valuation. The anticipated project would start as soon as spring comes around and would be done, I think, by the end of next year. For this agreement, We would be looking at transferring, the lot is about 1.8 acres in size. The usable area, it is a corner lot, so the usable space of this lot's about 1.3 acres. So for about a 12,000 square foot building, this falls in with the guidelines of what our typical incentive is for our land policy. So with that, staff would recommend approval of the agreement, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Shane, any questions, council? All right, thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
And do we have any public comments for this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and have a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for private development and approving and authorizing execution of a deed without warranty conveying certain city-owned real estate to Odell Collision Center LLC. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 4, public hearing on a proposed ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption to Amazon.com's Services LLC for a new industrial use warehouse facility at 6417 Innovation Drive. Motion to receive and file approved publication.
Second.
Motion seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And again, we have staff comments from Shane Graham. Apologize in advance. We'll see him a few times tonight. So,
Thank you, Mayor. Back in August of 2023, City Council approved a development agreement. At the time, it was with Ryan Companies, Inc., for a new 53,000 square foot industrial use warehouse located within the West Viking Road Industrial Park. After approval of that agreement, Ryan Companies did transfer the property to Amazon, of which that agreement came before City Council and was approved last year as well. Part of the agreement contemplated 2 items: one, transferring the property, and then also allowing for a tax abatement once the building has been completed. Council has obviously transferred the property upon approval of the development agreement, so this is the second step. Now that the building is complete, is to formally adopt the tax abatement ordinance, which can then be filed with the county assessor's office.
any questions for Shane? All right, thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
And any public comments for this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and look to pass an ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption to Amazon.com Services LLC for a new industrial use warehouse facility at 6417 Innovation Drive upon its first consideration.
So moved. Second.
It's been motioned and seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 5, a public hearing on a proposed ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption to Cedar Falls Partners LLC for a new industrial use warehouse facility at 6700 Innovation Drive. We have a motion to receive and file proof of publication.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and staff comments from Shane.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, same as last time, back in September of 2023, Council approved an agreement for private development with Cedar Falls Partners LLC for a new 87,000 square foot industrial use distribution center. That project is now completed. That will be the new distribution center for PepsiCo Frito-Lay. That building is recently being completed, so again, this is just taking the step to formally adopt the tax abatement ordinance that was approved as part of the development agreement last year.
All right, and any questions from council? All right, thank you, Shane.
Yep.
And do we have any public comments for this item tonight, please? Name and address, please.
Kim Jensen Jordan, 2018 Minnetonka Drive. Most of these that are going on today, tax abatement, questioning why we would have to give that to businesses that would want to come in or businesses that have outgrown. We just finished partial Main Street reconstruction, and commercial properties are being taxed higher. They were also not given sod like the residential areas. And so we're not really taking into account existing commercial businesses and extending the same things for them to maintain and pay taxes in the locations that they're at. So I'm just reaching out, knowing that it's probably already determined, as most things are, before we even get to this point. But I just would like to know if that's something that could be considered. Some of these businesses are already looking to come here anyway, and why do we have to give them extra on top of the amenities that they're already going to have? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want a few things for our economic development centers. I know we had presentations on these a while back, but it is a long-standing research. We look at comparatives of other communities, what are being offered. Industrial expansion is a competitive area for where people are looking to expand. And so for a lot of these incentives, it's the reviewed every year with council on what we want to offer, what levels, what the tax rates are. It's also pretty closely in line with some of the state standards around what we offer. And I do want to say that is part of this process, though, is, as you've said, you feel it's already decided once it gets here. I do think there is a lot of work that goes into these, but that is ultimately why we have the public comment and why we have these discussions, to make sure we're getting the input and making the decision with all due process. So thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this tonight, please? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for a motion to pass an ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption to Cedar Falls Partners, LLC, for a new industrial use warehouse facility at 6700 Innovation Drive upon its first consideration.
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I know it's kind of tangential to the topic, but I want to double down on what you said. The concept that these things are a foregone conclusion is somewhat fair, because these do have a head of steam when they get to this point. I myself experienced that before I got on council, wondering when is the time to get involved. It's usually in the earlier phases, right? I mean, some of these projects take years to develop. As we've heard from some developers here earlier tonight, you have to spend thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get in to this portion of it. I appreciate that there's still a public comment, but to remove the tax exemption that incentivize these people to come here in this situation would be a little bit like a bait and switch. We'd say, hey, you come here, we'll pay you this. Just kidding, we're not going to do that for you now. That would really give us a bad reputation. There may very well be some places or some partners that do want to come into town without that incentive, but because it's been offered for these projects all along, I think it's only right that we continue in this course. So it would be a plea then, too, to anybody that's civically engaged to get involved earlier and stay engaged often, so that you can be part of these projects all the way through.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion from council on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
I'll piggyback on Dustin's comment as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, we're even evaluating whether or not the incentives we're giving to a lot of these projects right now are even up to snuff with what other people in the state are giving right now. And we're hearing that from developers. Administrator Gaines, is that a fair statement?
That's correct. And I think if you recall, I believe it was last meeting, we reviewed all of those. And right now what we're doing is these are consistent with what they've been in the past. So,
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion for this item, please? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 6, public hearing on proposed ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption to McDonald Construction and Remodeling, LLC, for a new industrial use warehouse facility at 1701 Railway. Do we have a motion to receive and file approved publication?
So moved.
Second. Motion and seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And staff comments from Shane.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like the last two requests, this was a development agreement approved by council in 2023. This is in the North Industrial Park on Railway. It's about a 9,800 square foot building for McDonald Construction. That building is now complete, and now we are just taking the formal step to adapt the tax abatement ordinance that was contemplated in the development agreement.
Thank you, Shane. Any questions from council? All right, thanks, Shane. And any public comments for this item tonight, please? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Look for a motion to pass an ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption to McDonald Construction and Remodeling LLC for a new industrial use warehouse facility at 1701 Railway upon its first consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 7, a public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Searly Park Improvements Project. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
Second.
Been motion and seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And for this, we have staff comments not from Shane, but from Director Schrage.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight's public hearing is regarding the Searly Park renovation project. This project consists of the removal and replacement of the existing shelter. The new shelter will be a gazebo style. It also includes the removal and replacement of the playground, including the new play surfacing, which will be turf, and also a 4-foot fence surrounding the playground area. The project also includes a lot of flat work, concrete sidewalks, and kind of the trail that goes through the center of the park right there. I know Denny has a few photos up there for you. Total cost of the project is approximately $475,000. Most of the funds coming from the cell tower lease, not to mention the private donation, which was 25% of the project total, and that was $118,000.
Thank you, Chase. Any questions for Director Schrage? All right, seeing none, any comments from the public on this, please? Just name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Chris Martin. I live at 421 West Searly Boulevard. I'm a board member of the CHP, the College Hill Partnership, and also chair of the Searly Park Renovation Committee. So this project has been in the works for years, but this year it's happening for real, which is wonderful. We'd like to thank the city, including Chase Schrage, Stephanie Sheets, and Karen Howard, who have been with us from the start on this, and also a number of council members, including Aaron Hawbaker, Kelly Dunn, and Hannah Chrisman, Mayor Laudick, and former councilman Simon Harding, and they've all supported us with this project as well. The College Hill Partnership, as Chase mentioned, needed to raise a portion of the project. Our share has been $118,000, and we finished raising that in late September, which is less than a year. We wanted to thank a number of funders for their generous grants and donations to Searly Park Renovation Project. The major funders include the McElroy Trust, the Cedar Falls Community Foundation Health and Wellness Fund, the Guernsey Foundation, the Cedar Falls Lions Club, the Impact Outdoors, and the College Hill Partnership itself. Plus at least $18,000 from 45 individual contributors. The park is the city's second oldest park, dating from 1893, and hasn't been renovated significantly for more than 50 years. So this is a generational project with lasting impact, and we're thrilled to have so many people be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone on the team that's done a lot of fundraising for this. Any other public comment for this item tonight, please? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Look for a motion for a resolution approving and adopting the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Searly Park Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council?
Just wanted to say congratulations and a huge thank you to the College Hill Partnership and all of those that are on the committee. You guys have done an amazing job. It's been a long road with lots of changes and lots of talk about a purple dinosaur, but you guys did it, and it's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see it finish. So thank you.
Any other discussion from council? All right, seeing none, it requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now move to old business. Item number 8, pass ordinance number 3085, amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to allowing accessory dwelling units in all zoning districts that allow single-unit detached dwellings upon its second consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
been motioned and seconded, and any discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would like to actually send this one back. I'm going to come up with a motion to send it back if that's the appropriate way to do it, because I'd like to have our P&Z folks reconsider the allowance of 2 bedrooms. There is a usable situation where you'd benefit from having 2 qualified safe bedrooms. I wouldn't want to have kids sleeping in an office space that doesn't have egress or things of that nature, or a closet. There was discussion at the P&Z hearing from, I believe, Mr. Sorensen and Mrs. Watkins, that there would be support for that minor change. So in the interest of expedience and getting this out the door as an official ordinance, I'd like to send it now. It has been in place as written in the downtown district for more than a year now, and we haven't had a single ADU developed there, or at least a permit applied for under that current ordinance. So I don't think getting this out the door and seeing how it goes is really going to move the needle that much. And I don't think this minor adjustment of including 2-bedroom possibilities in those smaller accessory dwelling units is going to be too big of a risk. I think that the Planning and Zoning Commission could be amenable to that. So I'd like to send it back to them at this juncture with that amendment. So again, motion to amend to allow 2 bedrooms in accessory dwelling units and have P&Z weigh in on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that for discussion.
Question quick for Attorney Rogers to check. We wouldn't really be amending this. We would be looking to vote this down with direction back to P&Z to review same ordinance, but with adding that. So we would look to want to vote this down, not amend a vote.
Yeah, either way, a change has to be approved by P&Z. So like we said last time, I believe the proper procedure is to vote this down, make the referral back with the change, as council wishes the change to be made.
So sorry, if I may clarify then, in the interest of time, to get something on the books and see if this moves the needle a bit and send back for that requested change, that would be a possibility as well with the latter referral. I was thinking we could say it's going to circumvent the whole second and third reading anyway by sending it back to them, so I thought we could send it back to them and table the second reading. Is that a plausible maneuver?
I think that council has to act on this item in front of it first.
Okay.
And then were you asking, just to clarify, that could this be approved as is, plus an additional referral to have them also look at drafting an additional ordinance change to it?
Which I do believe if I was a commissioner, I'd be less inclined to do. I'd let it sit on the books and see how it plays out, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I agree with Councilor Ganfield on this topic. I brought it up last time and the procedure kind of lost wind or lost air. I did want to clarify one component of this as I was reading through the language. It was brought up by some councilors and the public to me that something with a 2-bedroom becomes a duplex. Well, if there's 1 meter service for gas, electric, water, then that's an ADU, and if there's separate metered service for, say, a garage ADU, does that become a duplex then? Or are we going to allow ADUs with separate utility meters? It's kind of a big, long question.
I'm not sure we can answer all of that question. We get into the technicalities of the building code about metering. But I think the gist of the comment was that if we start expanding the use beyond a small accessory dwelling, then really the better mode would be to look at the R1 and R2 districts and change our allowance about lot size for duplexes, or just better enabling duplexes, if that's what you'd like to see happen. And there are a variety of tools that we should have in the toolbox here, so ADUs is just one of them.
Right. The language that I was reading, and I can't seem to find it right at the moment, implied that there would not be a separate meter for an ADU. And I could be wrong, but that's what I was reading.
Karen, do you know off the top of your head? Speak to that.
We talked about that, so I think we'd leave it up to the property owner on whether they wanted to separate the utilities for the ADU or not.
Okay, then if they did that, then I think Councilor Schultz had a concern that a 2-bedroom would become a duplex.
Correct.
Okay, so if we delineate, and I was maybe reading in another city's code possibly, I believe Cedar Rapids has 2-bedroom units. There's even a debate in Iowa City about owner-occupied. That was the third thing that I was thinking of. And the two-window issue, 2 points of egress, that should be addressed. If we're going to address the two-bedroom, if you have two basement bedroom ADU, are you going to require 4 windows? Each one having 2 points of egress for windows and then a door as well? You're compounding the egress requirement when it's far and above what the regular code would say for a duplex or a basement bedroom. Because 90-some% of my bedrooms in my residence and in my rentals have one window. It's the predominant feature is one window, not 2 windows. I obviously want 2 points of egress, the door and a window. So I'm in favor of making this the I'm trying to think of the right word, the most plausible way for the public to utilize this code and have it make the most sense right up front instead of adopting something that's a little less likely to happen.
So
Mr. Mayor.
really quick for just this discussion, because I think we could get really deep into the weeds on actually discussing the ordinance itself, and that would need to be for a different conversation. So for today, quick, I just want to make sure we're on the same page of it seems like 2 options. One is we could approve this as is and then look to have a discussion on further direction to P&Z on adjustments we'd like them to look at making to it. And because I believe the couple things I've heard are the number of bedrooms, the egress requirements of them, and then the application to rental properties are kind of the 3 main topics that came up last time. Or the other option would be to vote this down now and probably have a discussion on our end about what direction do we want to send back to P&Z for what we'd like to. So I just want to make sure for today we need to vote on probably one of those 2. Just want to make sure we're on the same page about which of those 2 things
Mr.
we
Mayor,
vote for.
can I ask a question? There was a motion and a second, I believe.
Correct.
So what was the motion again?
And it would be irrelevant at this point because I would withdraw that as improper.
Okay, thank you. Makes it easier. Okay.
So currently, the motion in the second is to approve the current ordinance as we approved it last time, which does not include the second bedroom, any changes to egress, or any changes to the rental piece.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was a second on Dustin's.
There was.
Okay, hold on really quick. Let me see if anybody else.
Any questions?
Well, I do. So if we were, it's going to be pretty weed deep. So I'm going to hold off, particularly on, right now, I think we're theorizing we're going to have a single person living in a bedroom, and that person may have a child, and then where would that child sleep? Where if we have 2 bedrooms, could we end up with 2 couples and have 4 people with 4 cars? If we go down that road.
I don't see that.
Well, I think it's relevant because we're talking about the ordinance as it stands, and it is covered in the current ordinance. There is a limit on the adult occupants that can be in there. So a 2-bedroom cannot have more than
Well,
2
yeah,
adult
that's what I mean. If you go with what you're saying, so you wouldn't go with well, if we got 2 bedrooms, why don't we make it more adults?
Right, correct. All the other restrictions would apply. And just for point of order clarification, that motion has been withdrawn, so we are talking about the ordinance as presented. I do think it's relevant and worth talking through. We could theorize on why the ADUs aren't taken off downtown or why other cities are changing their ordinances that are similar, because we drafted ours. I think Mr. Sevi said we're very similar to other towns that have tried this or are trying it, and we matched our downtown pretty much exactly for this first iteration. I was just trying to say, hey, I'd like to see if we could accomplish something here. We could joke about it, but a retired couple in an in-law apartment that one of them snores might benefit from 2 bedrooms. You get what I'm saying? We don't know what all situations are going to get these usable.
Quick point of order, just make sure we're asking to speak, just so we keep.
But I think in the interest of getting this out there to see if it takes off and gains any popularity, we could vote this through and then later refer those changes if they are deemed necessary, or to clarify, vote it down and then refer back to P&Z for those desired changes. I'm not getting the sentiment that everybody wants that bedroom change, so I think we let it fly and see how it goes.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The reality, it was what I said at the first reading, is that let's adopt this, and I think the discussion we've had so far is proof of the fact that when you start tweaking with it, you say, well, let's just add a bedroom, something like that. There's a ripple effect throughout the writing of the code, square footage requirements, egress, whatever, that takes a lot of staff time and effort to do. And so I'm in favor of moving forward with this as is, see how, if it takes off, but that can give us time then to probably fine tune any referrals that we would have. So we know exactly what we would be asking the commission to look at. So I'm in favor of the ordinance as it stands right now.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. One second.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
To Council Member Hawbaker's comment about square footage and that, I was going to point out in one place we say the basic standards of the floor area be 800 square feet, whichever is less. In the next paragraph it says comparatively to the footprint of accessory structures in most lots is between 891 and 1,024. So why couldn't an ADU be 1,024 square feet? I mean, was that a decision by planning and zoning? That's a conversation further down the road here. So there's a lot of nuances here that possibly conflict, if that's the right word, or, are worthy of review. My original question was, can we start a referral process tonight to look at this and get it on the planning and zoning agenda to address these concerns that are quite legitimate, really, to maximize the use of this?
And my thoughts would be is just knowing the conversation sounds like there's at least enough interest to look at that. I don't think we'd want to draft a referral tonight because we can't really draft a referral that's clear on the spot. But I would take a yes vote for this as yes, we're approving this as is, but there is clearly some discussion we want to look at of, can we make some tweaks to it? Can we make some changes? And that would be an additional conversation.
Writing.
Mr. Mayor.
We can work on putting that together.
Sorry. Can we actually put that to a vote and see if there is actual, like, before we get into taking time, because I don't know if I'm hearing that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's, in my end, I'd like to see what we have on the put before us actually into play, and this is my thought on it, and I'm not taking away from the council person's thoughts, but this is an accessory dwelling unit, not another house. Like, it's meant to be a little independent unit on a single family lot to have a dwelling where, we can debate how many people and if it's a person with a child or what, but I think that's why I'm a little, but if we are going to say that there's interest, I'd like to know if there actually is interest with this group I'm ready to say there's not interest from me. So if we need to say that, we can say that.
And my intent was to either bring it to a committee discussion so we can have that discussion and vote on just, do we even want to move forward with that direction, or at goal setting? Because either way, I'd need to have a discussion with this body on, is that the direction and which specific items? So I would probably plan either a short committee discussion just to even get direction on what
Mr. Mayor?
specific changes. Yep.
Okay, obviously, it's your meeting, you can do as you wish, but a committee meeting takes, no matter what, that takes somebody's time. And there is staff input, takes some staff members' time. So I guess goal setting is more, to me, of a work session environment. And if we want to sit there and talk and dig into the weeds a little bit there, that to me is more appropriate than doing a committee meeting. A committee meeting seems more official. And again, I know that's your prerogative. You're able to do that. But I think the frustration that I have is I think we're hearing two different things, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I guess at this time, the motion, though, is to continue with what's in front of us. And so I'd like to call the question, and let's get moving on that.
And then procedure on call the question.
2/3 vote.
2/3 vote.
No debate.
So question's been called. So all in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
And all opposed? So questions have been called, so a roll call vote, please.
Five voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Item number 9, pass ordinance number 3086, amending ordinance number 1923, 2122, 2461, 2696, 2787, 2923, and 2953, providing that general property taxes no longer be divided on certain property located within the amended Cedar Falls Unified Highway 58 Corridor Urban Renewal Area upon its second consideration.
So move.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Just name, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Kim Jordan. And just piggyback on this last thing that we were talking about, I don't believe that we had public input on that.
I was actually going to mention that we did not do.
Okay.
So if you would like to speak on that item, since we didn't.
Yes, please.
Yep, go ahead.
Looking at it from a landscaping perspective again, and knowing that we have ordinances that there can only be 3 people of non-family orientation within a house. So if it is a rental property, there can be 3 non-family members. So if we do an auxiliary home, are we allowing then a 4th person? And then I would like to clarify, or at least have the city aware of this, and I think Ms. Sheets had kind of touched on it. We have properties here that are 5,000 square feet. We have 10,000 square feet properties. We have 20,000, an acre is 44,560 square feet. So neighborhoods vary. I was walking down by McDonald's today. There's no way that 800 square feet could be placed on some of those, and they have a detached garage. So if we could clarify also when it goes back to planning and zoning, exactly like what neighborhoods we're really discussing this to be in, because I still feel like the taxation to our Cedar Falls citizens is getting out of hand. And if this is a way that someone can leverage themselves to not like do an addition onto their home to accompany an in-law suite or some other room, I would like to see like tax abatement to something like that. But really looking at the land use, because we have old neighborhoods that already went through planning and zoning at one time. And we know that we have situations like the Ridges and Wynwood that have had water runoff and then dredging of ponds that had to be made. So you throw 800 square feet times, let's say, 8 into an area like that, and it's going to continue to have additional sloughing off and then affecting waterways. Or you take an area like Birdsall Park, and growing up in this area, I went through junior high. I could not believe that we would be building on swamp ground. And I literally now, I was watching houses be built on areas that never drain. So to put 800 square feet on something that's constantly running a sump pump and constantly flooding in June, I really find it disheartening, and it's going to be a liability that is going to come back to haunt us. And I think that if planning and zoning could be looking at that, addressing the 3-person, the parking, I believe Council Schultz is correct and right on with that, because we will have no say on it. It's going to be like us giving money to Ukraine and say, go about doing what you want to. And we have the control right now to reel it in. And we have to be mindful. I would like neighborhoods to also be aware of this. I would like letters to go out. I don't want it to be like when First Street construction was going on. We had 3 maps come in. It was laid out. We looked at one map. I asked, what about these 2 other maps? And they said, city wants this one. This is the one we're going to do. We learned back when the roundabouts were going on University Avenue. If things were directed and they did not want things to be changed, that company would be fired. So let's do the work now so that we're getting the people in place that can actually make the decisions. The neighborhoods can know about it and not be frustrated when the neighbor starts breaking ground, putting a big pile of soil in their yard and having additional runoff. So there's a lot of things that are going to go on with 800 square feet. And changes can be made right now, and there should be collaborative input by all instead of just saying, this is the plan that we're going to go with, and then that's it. So I appreciate all council's input on that.
Okay. For the input piece, I know, just to be clear, this has gone through a lot of P&Z discussions, recommendations, staff deliberation, but I was going to see quick, Karen, just correct me if I'm saying this wrong. This ordinance would apply citywide, so anywhere in town can build an ADU, but they would still have to maintain all development, building requirements about runoff on the site, water drainage, everything still applies, and setbacks and everything along with it.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just a little component, the lot coverage percentage, that applies everywhere? Or is
So,
Well, I'm just going to cut this off now, just because
Okay.
I don't want to get a conversation on it, so thank you, Karen.
that's a component of building anyway. That'll be covered.
All right, so we are on this ordinance. Any other public comment for this item tonight, please? All right, it requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And then we move to the consent calendar. So the following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests for items on the consent calendar from the council? Seeing none, any from the public? All right, also seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve items 10 through 13 of the consent calendar. Motion and seconded.
Second.
And any discussion, council? All right, and all those, this requires a voice vote, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Move to the resolution calendar, so the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that an item be considered separately. Any requests for the resolution calendar from council?
Number 25.
And then I'm going to pull item 30.
Did you say 30?
Yeah. Any other from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? 34. All right, so looking for a motion then to approve items 14 through 36, excluding items number 25, 30, and 34.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion from council? Seeing a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll go to item 25, a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an amendment to service agreement with Cope and Murphy and Co. LLP relative to providing lobbyist services relative to legislative action. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
Motion seconded and open for discussion. Councilman Ganfield?
Mr. Mayor, I pulled this one. I've had some concerns in the past, not with their performance of their work or anything, but just the ideology behind a city paying a lobbyist to argue for city needs when we might be split on certain issues. So I would like us to go in a different direction and not use lobbying services as a city. I would note that there are probably 24 cities-ish, I think maybe just under 24 cities that do use lobbying firms down in the capital. But I would like to recoup that $18,000 a year and no longer use lobbying services. There's a lot more dialogue we could go into, but our citizens are split on some thoughts, and they can vote with their feet what they buy and what they don't buy for certain things. And when their tax dollars are used to send a certain message that doesn't always get a consensus of everybody's on the same page unanimously, I think it's too divisive, and we don't want to compel speech with our citizens' tax dollars. So I'd like us to no longer send lobbying services to the Capitol.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I could echo what Councilor Ganfield is saying. You have to look at the composition of the legislative body right now in Des Moines. It's a trifecta in one way, and if we take a position against that, the lobbyists can speak all they want, but it's not going to move the needle. And I'd say we're wasting our money. And to the point, also stated that not that many cities have lobbyists, and there's, 900 and some cities in Iowa or so, something like that. We are the, 17th largest or something like that. So I question a city of our size spending money on a lobbyist that won't move the needle.
And just from my side, because after we did discuss this, and so I did some discussion with staff, and one thing is that this isn't just us setting political agenda items, it is also a group that can help us be aware of what the state's looking to make for decisions. House File 718 is something that's a big hamstring for us as a community, and being able to make sure we're informed on what's happening, what discussions are being had. But also, I would think there are some items like that we are pretty well aligned on about what we as a city are seeing as what we would consider negative policy of decisions that are affecting us. So my concern would be eliminating is now we have no channel for how we're hearing what's going on at the state level, for what's happening. That's one more thing that the question would be, how do we keep up with those? How do we give that feedback to some of our legislators? Because I do think a lot of the decisions that are affecting us, they're not the national big political decisions. There's just a lot of common sense issues that affect us as a community. I know we'll never agree on our stance on all of them, but that is part of being an elected body, is we try to as best as possible represent. So just my thoughts is there's a lot of value here beyond some of the more controversial topics that may come up, just for making sure we as a city are on top of some of the decisions that are being made at the state legislature.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would concern me a little bit to move right to just ending the contract or not agreeing to assign the contract again. I think, some further discussion about what that would look like, how we would communicate with folks at the state level, what they have been advocating for in the past that, we might have issue with, or just the services that they have provided and how those have been beneficial. And, I think it is, I guess I don't know, but I think it is unfortunate to just say that they serve no purpose, or, that they can't help those of us who aren't at the state house. We want to be advocated for, and I think that they certainly do have some power. I mean, that's their job. So yeah, I wouldn't want to just jump right to not signing it, but I think it would be okay to consider it and maybe look at where that funding is going and if that is a good use of our funding.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I second that. I take your point, Mr. Mayor, that the substantial benefit of having some connection to Des Moines to see what's in the pipeline, what legislation's in the pipeline. I've had some experience in other areas, and really it's just the information and being informed of what to prepare for, whether or not we can affect it at all. At least we know what's coming. I also agree that it's not a bad idea, because I'm not entirely sure of the specifics of the complaints you're lodging, Councilman Ganfield. So we can have a further discussion about that. But right now, I would hate to lose that source of information. So I would be in favor of it.
Mr. Mayor? Yep. So I'm kind of a mixed bag between the conversations that we've been having. I would hate to lose our information source and the updates that we get. We also have elected officials at the state level that we need to maybe bolster our relationships with. We do meet with them once a year. Maybe as we move forward, we increase those sit-downs with those representatives, as well as we maybe transition to the elimination or the downsizing of the lobbyists. But coming from business side of things, the lobbyists have been of great service to many businesses, because they're there every day. They're watching as each vote is cast, or each idea is brought forth. So it's very valuable to have those eyes at the Capitol.
Because something else second that is nothing replaces us as a city having good connections with our legislators. So we do need to stay focused on that too. One sec, Chris had his.
Thank you. One thing that does stand out in this amendment in the contract is, unlike virtually any other contract that has come before us that's looking for an extension or an amendment to it, there's not a cost change in this. Usually we're seeing several 100% increase in fee for service on this. So ultimately, I don't necessarily disagree with whether or not there's necessarily a effective mechanism for change based on these. I think it still goes back to the information flow coming back, because let's just face it, we don't have the bandwidth to dedicate city staff to be going down to Des Moines to gather this information. I agree with Councilmember Schultz in that I think we could probably leverage our local elected body a little more than just saying, hey, we're going to meet once a year for a general update, and then some of them are here and some of them aren't through no fault of their own. Just like the rest of us, they have their own lives and careers and et cetera. So I don't see a huge risk in this. Ultimately, we're talking of $54,000 over 3 years. So I think certainly there's some discussion to be had on maybe the frequency in which we meet with this body and with our elected officials. But to me, I think the information coming back about what is or isn't happening in Des Moines is probably the most valuable piece out of this. So I don't have any concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Him, they'll come back.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with each person's comments here, having spent a lot of time in Des Moines interacting with lobbyists and legislators down there and legislators locally. I think it's important to engage with them locally here more than just once a year. There's the defensive side of lobbying and the offensive side of lobbying. And significant difference, because if something pops up that we don't like, we need to echo that in Des Moines, regardless what political party, both sides. And something I learned here recently kind of surprised me, that a vast majority of the legislation that they passed is nonpartisan. And you only hear about the controversial votes. So they usually meet in the middle and amend and re-amend their various proposals. And it would be up to us to have a discussion with these lobbyists on what sort of directive we're giving them on what item, each item. Because we could be in full agreement with whatever the bill is. And on a side note, do we get weekly updates every Friday after the session is done on Thursday?
Depends on what's going on that week. Though it's usually bi-weekly is
Okay.
probably more accurate. Once you hit the funnel, then we start to get a lot more
Sure.
updates.
I mean, it depends. The funnel can, if there's something really bad, we want to get rid of it before the first funnel. So anyway, there's a spectrum of things here, but I think it's a good discussion, and I appreciate Mr. Canfield bringing it forward.
Agreed.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, if I may, just as a clarification, then I initially said there's not a major complaint, so Councilman Hawbaker, it's not a particular issue that I would point to say, hey, this was bad. Tom and John are very personable people. They do great work down there, and we do appreciate their feedback. To that point about complaints and such, Administrator Gaines was clear to say that he does not advise on anything that would be something that we're disagreed upon, right? We only tell them to register for items that we know we're concerned about. So there hasn't been a major risk in that regard. The timing of this is the concern. So we have goal setting coming up in this next couple of weeks. This is a contract extension for 3 years. We've been with them for 5, satisfactory performance. But we can't really have a conversation about what to do differently at goal setting if we renew this contract for the next 3 years. I renewed it 2 years ago, and coming up with goal setting, I just wanted to see what other options we could do, whether it is better partnership with our local electeds, our state electeds, or our city staff perhaps. So I just wanted some nimbleness in that conversation and not keep paying that dollar. So if it passes, as it presumably will, we'll see if we can have that conversation in a different fashion.
Any other discussion, thoughts, council?
The thing I'd say is to Mr. Ganfield's point is that we advise them throughout the session, legislative session, how we feel about things. So, you know, whether to aggressively go after something or aggressively not, or, you know, say it's fine. So it is kind of odd to, Mr. Ganfield's point is that we're approving something right before goal setting, which is a dollar expenditure. Wouldn't it be nice to talk about a goal setting, possibly? But
You know, the one discussion did have with staff on this morning was partly there's a lot of stuff coming up that starts happening right after the election. So we do want them kind of locked in so they can start on it.
Sure.
That is partly why it makes because we do have a goal-setting item specifically to discuss legislative priorities, and that's in the goals. So I think that's why this is coming now, is just to make sure we're ready to roll after tomorrow. Everyone go vote. And so, but it does make an odd timing because it is right before our goal setting when we would discuss in more detail whether.
I mean,
There's no way around that.
their directives would change as legislation changes.
All right, any other discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Just name, please.
And Jordan. Yeah, the bipartisan is huge, and what we're dealing with in this city is needing to be for all. And when I keep coming up here, it's because I'm trying to think of all the citizens, all the taxpayers. We've lived through a lot, and we need to be thinking about that hospital. And it is going to involve.
Is
Yeah.
there a connection to
Yeah.
this discussion
It
specifically?
it is kind of all in what we've been dealing with within our community. One of them was the funeral of academics at Price Lab.
I'm going to cut you
Yeah.
off. I don't see the connection with this to our
It's-
contract
yeah,
with the
I'm just
lobbyists.
wanting to say that I think it should be about all representation, kind of like when we're thinking about improvements to the city, thinking about even the surrounding communities that want to come in here, so that when we're discussing improvements or new things, I think that it does have some correlation with how the monies get trickled down, or the communications that come back, and the helpful hands that can be reached out just with a phone call to open the doors for certain other things to happen, even though there's a lot of goal setting and teamwork that's going to be involved in building and bringing things in. So I guess I just wanted to say that our city, we need to come back and grow, and there's a lot of stuff yet that we're going to have to vote on that is going to have to involve a lot of the surrounding communities and like the teamwork, and then money's going to certain things. So yeah, that partnership is important.
Thank you, Kim. Any other public comments for this item tonight, please? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please. You have to submit too.
Okay.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
All right. There are 2 clicks. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 30, that resolution passes. Item number 30, resolution approving and authorizing execution of a professional service agreement with Raftelis relative to the 2025 to 2030 strategic plan. Do a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And seconded, and I'll discuss this quick since I pulled it. So this is for the strategic planning that we talked about at goal setting and a priority we've been working on. I wanted to pull it because it is over budget from what we had budgeted this year for it. I know it was a large priority, and the process we went through, we got, I believe, 6 applicants for it. We reviewed 3 of them. Myself, Administrator Gaines, Stephanie Sheets, and Chris Latta sat down and interviewed with each of them, and we felt this was, I think, pretty well the top choice. Really good background, really good examples of other projects they've been involved with, and would be a really good consultant, but also the community engagement piece that they focus on. Some of the platforms they use were really interesting to us and staff. So I don't know, Councilmember Latta, if you want to include anything else?
Yeah, I would just say that one of the big pushes in this was to try to take some of the heavy lifting on the communication piece off of city staff and put it back on the shoulders of the people we're paying to do this. And that was really evident with this group and their proposal. So I'm very supportive of this. I echo your concern to some extent that it does come in over budget, but comparatively, again, as we've talked on a few different occasions tonight, the bandwidth of our city staff, as lean as we are, isn't going to allow itself to be the point person for communication on this to get the community engagement. So I really valued what this group was bringing to the table, so I have 0 concerns with this agreement.
Thank you. So any other discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just double checking with Director Rodenbeck. Would there be any opportunity economic development dollars would be able to be allocated for this instead of general revenue?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure right now what we've already spent for our allotment for this year, so I guess I don't know that off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, if the council wants to direct staff to take it out of those funds, we can sure do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if, instead of a budget amendment, if some of those general fund savings might be allocatable to
Well,
cover
and
the
maybe what
shortfall.
we can do is when we do the budget amendments this spring, we'll just make a note that if that was a use based on anything else that's come up with economic development, we could just use that instead, and we can do that through the budget amendment process. You guys can approve it through that?
Counselor?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, is this one of the items that we chose to postpone to be able to fund the ask by the school?
That was the comp plan,
Okay.
which is the like bigger revision of like all the future land use planning and
Sure.
a lot of those.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Good question, though. Any other discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? All right, also seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And item number 34, a resolution setting November 18th, 2024 as the date of public hearing to consider entering into an agreement for private development with Balos LLC. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Just name, please.
Kim Jordan. Is this, can we have clarification? Is this the development from Wingert on 12th Street? No, it is not.
No, that's not.
Okay.
I believe this is on 2nd Street, East 2nd Street.
109 East 2nd Street, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you. So in downtown.
Okay. And is that the space station that, or?
Or the space building? where
Yeah.
The space was, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and that is going to go back into historic preservation and funding or time frame? It's right on track?
I wouldn't be able to speak to the developer specifically, but I do know they're working to withhold or uphold the exterior of the building that they've been working on as part of that, so.
Okay, because it sounded like it was like a definite time frame where it was really putting pressure on a specific end point and wanting
Mr.
to
Mayor,
make
this
sure.
is just to set the hearing, correct?
Yes, correct. So yes, there will be, just so you know, there will be future items of this on the agenda where it can discuss some of the specifics.
Okay.
We'll be approving the actual.
Opportunities to discuss.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Mr. Mayor, can we just clarify, so the specifics, I think that Ms. Jordan is looking for should be on next agenda. So these questions will be available on the agenda through the hyperlink.
I agree with you.
Correct. Thank you, Councilmember Dunn. All right, any other public discussion on this, please? All right, seeing none requires a roll call vote.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move to allow bills and claims. We have a motion to allow bills and claims for November 4th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. And any discussion from council? And any from the public? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any council updates or announcements?
Mr. Mayor, just wanted to clarify, don't go vote tomorrow if you've already voted.
You only get
But to
one.
clarify, do please get out and vote. Do your civic duty. We appreciate it.
Go early vote.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other council announcements, discussion? Seeing none, we don't have any written council referrals, any pressing referrals? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.